How's it going, guys? Alex here, and in today's Dokkan Battle video, I am going to be going over the new Super Vegito that is coming to the global version of the game, and just basically going over how hard he hits, how good he is at tanking, and a numerous of other things like his best teams and so forth. But as always, I hope you guys do enjoy today's video, and if you do, consider leaving a like and subscribing if you are new. Now let's get started with the actual card, which I would imagine you've seen him quite frequently in a lot of videos, just because, of course, the release of PHY Vegito, he is going to be a very prominent figure on that particular team. But just to go over what he does himself and why he is as good as he is, I mean, it's Super Vegito, especially when you consider that he is a category lead. Of course, he is just a massive boosted version of himself in comparison to the agility type, but gives free key to the Majin Buu Saga Team, as well as a 170% health and defensive increase, and you also get a 130% attack increase. So when it comes to the leader skill, it obviously prioritizes the health and defensive increases, whereas the attack doesn't get that much of a buff. It does get that additional 10% in comparison to just a mono team, which of course is still a 120% attack increase. But 130 is nice, but it's not going to be providing that much more in terms of offensive potential, and it's one of the reasons why units like LR Gohan kind of struggle with keeping up in terms of damage in comparison to certain units. Like, for example, LR Black and Zamasu, they made their first appearance, or one of the very few appearances, on the top 5 hardest hitting LR list, and now because of the massive attack increase that they are getting from the PHY Vegito lead, they are back on that list. Or again, I'm not too sure if they were ever on that list, or if they you know, this is like their first time or something, but they are on that list because of the massive increase that they get from the PHY Vegito leader skill. So what this particular Vegito provides with his leader skill isn't so much in terms of the attack department, but it definitely is there in terms of health and defense. It's basically going to be a team that can hit very hard, but it's not going to be on the levels of some of the other categories. But at the same time, it's probably going to have one of the easiest times surviving against the majority of the events in the game. Granted, it's not like it's very hard to survive against the majority of the Dokkan events, but you will definitely have an easier time taking on, like, and here's the thing, and this is completely off topic for the most part, but when it comes to Super Battle Road, you can actually run a physical team just entirely based on the Majin Buu Saga, and it is possible to beat Super Battle Road with a particular setup like that because of the increases that you get to your health and defense from the Majin Buu Saga leader skill. But if we move on to the rest of the card, as always, this is basically a guarantee for 99% of the Dokkan Fest release. To be honest, I will even say 100% chance, just because they will never take a step back from this point forward. Otherwise, people most likely just won't summon for the card. I mean, people will, but it's like, there's just no point in diminishing a card of this value. So, for example, it causes immense damage, and what I meant by diminishing a card is that they will never go back to just supreme damage for Dokkan Fest units like this. So even Ultra Instinct Goku, he hasn't received an awakening, just has the immense damage modifier for his super attack. So they will never take a step back. Every single Dokkan Fest from this point forward, well, not even this point, but from like the Super Saiyan 4s, will have immense damage. And of course, he gives a 30% attack increase for all of your allies for one turn. He doesn't give that to himself. If you get an additional super attack, that is when you do give it, or he gets it for himself as well. But when it comes to the super attack mechanic, it's equivalent to a 7% increase. I know it says 30%, but that is an inaccurate representation of the increase that it actually gives. If it was a passive increase, that would be a bit different, because that is actually going to be 30%. But when it comes to the super attack mechanic, for whatever reason, it's only a 7% attack increase. Now this is where the card starts to differ massively in comparison to the Agility Super Vegito. So he reduces damage received by 50% from normal attacks. If I'm not mistaken, the Agility type reduced damage by 80%, but going back to what I said before, because of the massive defensive increase that we get from this particular lead, he isn't going to struggle to tank. Even on the LR Super Vegito category, I believe it doesn't give that much of a defensive increase, but because it gives a bit more than the mono teams, he is still going to be able to tank very well regardless, especially if he does have several potential system buffs. That is something that you always have to consider. The increase from the leader skill may not necessarily be the greatest, but as long as they have potential system buffs, they are, you know, going to be very good when it comes to tanking normal attacks, especially if they have a damage reduction. Of course, he counters with tremendous power, and the tremendous power multiplier is 300%. And I don't know if I mentioned this already, but his 12k multiplier is 150%, which was basically the peak for Transcended Ultra Rare units up until the release of Tech Vegito Blue and STR Super Saiyan Rose Goku Black. But they went up a notch. Again, the last Dokkan Fest that we had, of course, was the double LR Dokkan Fest, so I don't know if when they release another set of units, or just a singular unit, if they are going to have a 12 key of 160% as well, or if they are just keeping that exclusive to Tech Vegito Blue and Goku Black. But now moving on to the second portion of the passive, which is what ultimately makes him one of the hardest hitting units in the game, especially on that newer category. He gets a 10% attack increase every single time that he is attacked, and there is a limit of 100%. So after getting attacked 10 times, he is getting a 100% attack increase. And if we go back to how hard the Agility Super Vegito used to hit, he was in the millions. He was way above everyone when he was first released. In a single turn, he could easily get off like 1,000,000 damage, and that was before the potential system. The potential system then came along, and it made getting like 500k crits like just super easy. It was just ridiculous how much of a difference the potential system made when it came to Agility Super Vegito's damage output. And keep in mind that Agility Super Vegito did not get a single attack increase. His damage output came entirely from his 12 key multiplier, his attack stat, the leader skill. Those are the things that made him hit hard. And again, if he super attacked twice, he would get a minimal increase from that super attack mechanic. But the point is, he didn't get a single attack increase from his passive, whereas this Super Vegito does, and it is what ultimately makes him way better than the older one and a lot of the units currently in the game. But a potential 100% attack increase for a unit like this is honestly just crazy to me, and I'm surprised that they did end up going down this road. And you also have to take into account that when it comes to the counter damage, is that it's entirely based on the attack stat alone. So the more times you get hit, the higher the attack stat is going to be for Super Vegito. And of course, once you take into account the critical hits as well, you can see how much damage you can get from those counters. And now, if we move on to his links, he has Super Saiyan, Prepare for Battle, Feast Fighter, Power Bestowed by God, Infighter, Golden Warrior, and Fierce Battle. So the issue comes with the fact that he doesn't have the Shocking Speed link. And it's a bit of a shame because he is now not going to be able to link up with units like Ultimate Gohan. You have LR Goten and Trunks. A decent amount of units on that particular category that have the Shocking Speed link, and he isn't able to link up with them. And the thing about that particular team is most of the units are going to have Over in a Flash. Of course, you have Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks, Majin Buu Vegeta, Super Saiyan 3 Angel Goku, the Extreme Z Awakened Goku, just so many units without Over in a Flash link, and we know for a fact that he was never going to get it to begin with. So I was like, okay, you know what, he's probably going to have Prepare for Battle and Shocking Speed. They didn't give him Shocking Speed, which diminishes a lot of the links on that particular team. And it's such a shame because those particular units that he potentially could have linked up with are no longer going to be that viable. And of course, you're just going to end up running a double Super Vegito lead anyway because you kind of have to run his category. So you're going to have two Super Vegitos and a ton of other Over in a Flash units. But of course, I will be getting into the team building in the further portion of this video. So definitely stick around for that. But of course, the categories that he is on are the Majin Buu Saga, which he is lead for. And then we have the Potara category, which of course Kefla and the LR Super Vegito are the leads of. But to be honest, the release of LR Super Vegito's leader skill did wonders for his attack potential. And he is definitely up there in terms of damage, despite needing a bit of a build up from his passive skill. And what you guys should be seeing in the background right now is a bit of gameplay for the physical Super Vegito. My one is currently at 100%, so I hope you guys do enjoy it. But I'm just going to be reading something off the Dokkan subreddit, and again, I will be leaving the link in the comment section down below if you do want to read it for yourself. A big shout out to Mobile Man for these particular notes. So, when it comes to Super Vegito's damage output, links that are considered to be active are Fierce Battle, which is a 15% attack link. We have Super Saiyan, and of course we also have Power Bestowed by God, and those links are guaranteed or basically considered to be activated the majority of the time. So, when it comes to Super Vegito's calculations, it is extremely complicated. And this is worded in such a weird way, but try to keep up with me. So the fact that he attacks every time, or counterattacks, just to specify that. So the fact that he counterattacks every time he hits with a normal attack, it means that different parts of his attack equation have different amounts of attack buff. So this is where it gets very confusing. So to properly calculate his correct average attack, I had to break his attack equation into 3 separate components and apply a different amount of buff to each one. I then added those parts together to get his average attack. I compared the result of that complex equation to his attack with his build-up amount at 0% attack, and the difference between the two figures was a 50% multiplier. So for the sake of simplicity, he is just basically going to be showing Vegito off with his passive at 50%. That's not technically his correct average passive buff for his entire equation, but using that produces correct average attack, which is what's important. In addition to his own attack, Super Vegito generates an extra attack increase to his allies through a super attack buff. The extra attack generated by this will be reflected in his average attack stat. This amount fluctuates every time a teammate is changed on his current team. And according to this, he adds around a 200,000 attack increase to your units. So taking that into account, we have the Fierce Battle link active, which again is a 15% attack link. We have Super Saiyan, which is a 10% attack link. And if I'm not mistaken, Power Bestowed by God is just a flat out attack increase that I believe gives a 2,500 attack increase. Do not quote me on that. Actually, it says right there, 2,500 attack link. I had it in my head. 3 potential system buffs as well. We have a Super Attack 10 multiplier. And keep in mind that this is with the LR Super Vegito leader skill. So his average attack stat that is taken into account the counters, the additional attack chance, and the super attack buff to all allies. His average attack stat is 2.5 million, which brings him in the second spot when it comes to the top 10 hardest hitters list for Transcended Ultra Res. And now you're probably wondering, how is he second? What about LR Super Gogeta and LR Vegito? This particular list is made without them actually being transformed. If they were transformed, then they would easily be ahead of everyone else. So without the LRs being transformed, Super Vegito does in fact come second in the hardest hitters list. Now this particular part of the video, I would imagine, is going to confuse a few people, but it comes back to what I mentioned before, and just this team having a particular amount of key issues that this particular team has. But of course, the first unit that you're going to be using is the physical Super Vegito. You have LR Vegito, Majin Vegeta, the Extreme Z Awakened Goku, Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks, and at this particular point, you can go down one of two roads. You can either run the Tech Angel Goku, or you can just run a support unit. To be honest, I would just personally go with a support unit just for that additional bit of key. Physical Super Saiyan 2 Goku is a very good option, as well as the STR Gohan from the World Tournament rewards. But that's just an example of a team that you can make. Again, it can change just depending on what your box is currently looking like. But units like Ultimate Gohan, LR Goten, and Trunks unfortunately do not make the list. And for the most part, the team is going to be the exact same on the global version of the game. You can probably play around with a few more units just because the Super Saiyan 3 Goku doesn't have his Extreme Z Awakening. LR Vegito isn't there, so you may want to go for a few more support units instead of just the harder hitters. But that was my personal team. But yeah, I hope you guys did enjoy the video as always. And if you did, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more. Kind of feels weird to use this layout after I made that one video and it just kind of never happened again. But hoping to do a few more of these in the future. Again, it's not the exact same as the previous one, but I think this is a good balance between what I did before and what I'm trying to do now. But as always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I hope you guys have a wonderful time summoning for the physical Super Vegito. But yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful day as always, and I will see you all in the next one.